Fans, Peter Ariz here with another edition of Canes Insight Live. Appreciate everyone who's joining the show tonight. As always, we'll wait a few minutes before we get into the nitty gritty as we let everyone get on here. But D Money will be joining me momentarily. If you have not been following the website the last few days, a lot of stuff has gone up there. As D Money and I just posted our podcast this morning, talking about a lot of stuff from camp. Obviously, the scrimmage was last Saturday. D Money gives you his recruiting scoop as always. He gave you two additions of the bank. D has taken multiple vacations this year, as people on the message boards, the forums have pointed out. But we need him well rested for this stretch coming up now, obviously, with the season. So I think that might be it for him in terms of vacations, because we got the season coming up here. And again, D Money will be joining us on this live show momentarily. But D dropped a camp edition, so really a team related stuff. And we'll get into a lot of that with him here. I want anyone who's on here now to start dropping questions right now in the comments for D Money, as he'll be on here in the next few minutes. Drop those questions. We'll get to all of them that we can. And we appreciate everyone who's watching the show live as always. Last week, we did something a little bit different. Was not able to get on the normal Thursday night slot. So I did it Friday, the next day around noon. We had a really good turnout in terms of live viewers. So I might do that during the season, some preview type stuff, things of that nature. The day before the game, Brad Tejeda joined me last week, and he actually had the good idea of maybe getting a rival or the team that the Canes are going to be facing that week, one of their beat writers or someone in the know there, to kind of pick their brains a little bit about the game ahead. So again, drop those questions in there for D Money, who's going to be joining the show. Anything team related, recruiting related, and wanted to get to a couple, again, notes of business that we're excited about here at Canes Insight. Our partnership with Titanic, which is right there next to campus in Coral Gables. This is going to be the official spot for Canes Insight watch parties this year, home and away. So we will be announcing the details in terms of what the specials are going to be, but this is going to be the spot. Upgraded viewing experience there, added a huge TV in the front, and the audio experience has been upgraded in a big way. So excited for Canes fans to get out there. And for example, even though the home game, Miami of Ohio, next a couple Fridays from now, a lot of people are going to be going to that game. The specials are going to be earlier in the day as well. So if you make your way down to campus, again, it's right there across from Mark Light, Titanic Brewery and Restaurant. Get yourself a meal, get yourself some drinks, full bar there. Obviously, it's a brewery, so they, make their stuff in-house, but excited to partner up with them this year, and definitely going to be out there for a lot of those watch parties. Excited to get to meet a lot of you if you guys are in town. And again, even if you're in town for the game, you can check it out. You'll have the specials available on game day before you head up to the stadium. Appreciate everyone who's on here now. As Ian Coleman says, hit the like and subscribe. You guys have been helping us out big time with that lately. Our subscribers are jumping up, and we're trying to bring you guys this content as fresh as we can. I'm sure a lot of you saw the live that I did from East 12 after the scrimmage last week, and it was a great back and forth. I mean, there's always going to be questions when you watch a scrimmage, when you watch a practice, whatever it may be. When someone's doing well, there has to be someone on the other side who isn't holding up their end of the bargain, isn't doing their job, right? But I think what you saw last week, right, was The offense got it going early with that run game, and the offensive line was really opening up some holes early, but the defense came back, gave him a good counter punch. And I said this again on my live show that I did, and then Mario Cristobal said the same thing. So it was good to see that back and forth. It wasn't just a total dominant performance on one side of the football as opposed to the other, right? Both sides had their flashes, and obviously everyone's excited that there seems to be a lot more depth across the board, but there are some questions in important spots that we will get into with D Money. Again, drop those questions in for D Money as he'll be joining the show momentarily. And again, if you have not checked out the site this week, the bank, D's dropped a couple editions of that. The recruiting edition, which we'll get into, Cam Franklin making his decision obviously this weekend. That one seems like it's all over the place. Auburn has been the rumored team that's been making a big push, but Miami's squarely in it, and I know there's a couple other programs in it as well. David Stone, that one is looking like a recruitment for the ages. Zaquan Patterson, safety out of Chaminade, Miami's been kind of favored there for a little bit now, but that one's going to continue to be a factor. As D Money noted, though, Mom seems like she's on the Canes' side. Eddie Pierre-Louis, Xavier Mincy, guys to monitor who are not committed anywhere right now. Xavier Mincy, of course, the defensive back out of Daytona Beach. UF has been the rumored favorite, and there were some rumors last week that he might have been making a move to commit to Miami. That did not happen, but the Canes are squarely in the mix there. Eddie Pierre-Louis, that's going to be an interesting finish, right? Because his recruitment, Miami really has thrown themselves in there heavily over the last month and a half. And we should know something in the next couple weeks, as D Money says. Elias Rudolph, as D Money noted over a month ago, the Canes were recruiting him heavily, even though he was committed elsewhere. And of course, he ends up committing last week, and a guy with a lot of upside at that edge spot. So appreciate everyone who's on this live right now. We're just over 70 people, as D Money should be getting in here momentarily. Let's see. Let me look at some of these questions, see if there's anything that I can get to. Because I know, like I said, these are things for D, but Steven Avello saying, since it's been so long since we had a good O-line, it's tough for me to be too optimistic, but you guys are feeling good about it, huh? I'll tell you what, Steven, with that position, it's not hard to see anyone who went to the scrimmage last week, right? O-line is a very visually, it's an eye test position, right? And listen, Miami's had these open scrimmages, open practices for years, right? Maybe a little bit more frequent over the last few years than it maybe was with Randy Shannon and Golden in particular. But with those teams, and don't get me wrong, there was a period of time there where Miami did have a good amount of offensive linemen, from that Golden Shannon era. But you would only see a handful of guys per year who looked the part. You see it across the board now. You see it in the second, third unit where you say, who's that guy that is a Tommy Kinsler who looks the part and looks like he could start pretty much anywhere across the country. Obviously, he's a freshman, but that body type, that profile you're looking for is there, and you see it across the board. There's some concern about the interior depth on the offensive line, but there's so much cross-training going on, And I think I said this on the podcast last night when D Money and I were talking about it, but it's way easier to move a guy from tackle to guard than to try to get a guy who's a natural guard to play tackle. Because if you don't have the athleticism to play tackle, you're in trouble. The interior offensive line position, a lot of times, yes, you have to have the physical strength to play inside against guys who are naturally bigger and stronger, but it's a mentality a lot of times. The tackles, I don't want to label them, right? But sometimes they could be a little bit more finesse. The guys inside, it's a lot dirtier in there. Things get mucked up, right? And if a guy has the toughness, then I think it could translate very well to that position, which you still have to have the athletic ability to play, but you aren't as isolated as you maybe are playing the tackle position. Danilo, I've had like 4 or 5, man. So I don't know if you just got on, but I've definitely had more than one voice crack. Juan Manuel Ventura asking about Anthony Campbell, Josh Horton, Jaden Wayne. It's interesting because Anthony Campbell made a couple plays at the end of that scrimmage last week. I was in the stands there watching, and there were some people behind me asking, who's 90? I think it's 93 is what number he's wearing, but they're saying, who's 93? They think it's a freshman. They're trying to figure out because he just sticks out on the sideline. And it was Anthony Campbell. He sticks out like a sore thumb. I mean, he's 6'7", can play outside, can play inside, but he made some good plays at the end of that scrimmage. He definitely flashed. But what's interesting is that he's not a guy that D Money's necessarily mentioned on his reports that we've talked about. And listen, D's info is as good as anybody's. He's getting it, as fresh as it comes. So essentially, that's something that I want to ask him about. Josh Horton is someone that D Money said, if he was here in the springtime, would have definitely been in the 2 deep right now. So he's pushing. I mean, at that position, he's probably in the third unit, but he's going to probably be in the mix at a certain point sooner rather than later. Hopefully they handle business early on against Miami of Ohio, where a guy like him can get in the mix and get some reps. And if he's needed, we'll see against an A&M, but he's someone that as ACC play progresses, I would expect him to be getting a solid amount of snaps per game. Jaden Wayne had some flash plays. I mean, I think it was 2 sacks maybe in the scrimmage. And again, it's tough to quantify what sacks are in these scrimmages, but when you see a guy flashing off the edge, it's easy to say, well, he may not have ended up getting the sack on the play, but he would have affected the play negatively from his spot. Assad Hussein, how has Shamar Kirk looked? We'll wait for D Money to get into that more in depth, but I think he's a guy who has definitely provided a nice push for a lot of these guys in terms of a Jacoby George, a Tyler Harrell, who come in with a lot of experience. And Tyler Harrell, maybe not necessarily at Miami, but you've been waiting for them to take that next step and really be consistent, I think is the word you're looking for. Harrell's been injury related, but Jacoby George in particular. Shamar Kirk is a guy who I would feel very comfortable with if he needed to take snaps for this team this year right now. But I think he's been a really, really good addition in terms of the depth at that spot. Freeney was banged up, according to Mario. So I don't know how he was looking before that, but I think last week he got banged up. It doesn't look to be too serious. DB asking what the deal is with the tight end injuries. I think with that, because you see Cam McCormick got the start, the 8th or 9th year senior. I don't know what it is at this point, but coming over from Oregon, he got the start in the scrimmage, and an Elijah Arroyo was out. Jaleel Skinner was out there as well. Cam McCormick got the nod on him, but Riley Williams was also banged up. Neither of those right now, I don't think, are too serious where they expect them to be out for the season. I mean, not out for the season, out for the start of the season, I should say. But I think it's more of a cautious type thing, but we'll get into that more with D-Money. Julian Sutton asking, is the Michael Redding breakout finally going to happen? I'll tell you what about Michael Redding, man. He got a lot of reps, a lot of snaps in that game in the scrimmage last week. And he's someone that the staff trusts, very obviously. So can block, has the size, reliable hands. Maybe not the most dynamic, but when you can trust someone in your system, that goes a long way. And I know with this staff at that position, he's a veteran at this point. So what's up with Chase Smith? Daniel Nordwall asking. That's a question for D-Money. I don't know what's up with him right now. Obviously, he had been coming back from his injury, but he was not out there at the scrimmage. I didn't see him in pads. As D-Money is coming on here, he is. D-Money, welcome back from your, as I said in the intro, as you weren't on yet, but we need you well rested for this season, this long season ahead. So some people give you a tough time about the amount of vacations you're on, but we need you at your peak form. And I think those trips re-energize you somewhat.
Yeah, I was still in debt, to my family for dragging them through last year's Canes season. Every single home game was a chore. A lot of Saturdays lost, so I had to give something back. And now this year, it's not going to be a debt. It's going to be a positive experience because it's going to be fun. The kids are going to like football. And my kids, all they want to do is watch baseball. My son's watching replays of Marlins games right now because he's seen the Marlins win a little bit, Canes, he hasn't seen it yet. So this will be the year that we're not going to have to make excuses to our spouses while we're going to the games or taking the kids, taking them. It's going to be a fun, high-flying, winning experience at Hard Rock. So, I'm juiced up.
So, D, listen, I did all the promo, talking about our new deal with Titanic, which we're excited about. I didn't say this before, but to me, I'm excited about it, D, because Titanic, as you said, you grew up going there. It's in the heart of Coral Gables. Yes, Coral Gables isn't your college town, but, we could create a little slice of that right there, essentially on campus, with these watch parties there. I'm excited for it. And look, even those home games, like I said, you get in early, the deal's still going to apply. If you're in town for that Miami of Ohio game, the deal's going to start at 1 o'clock. So the game's not until 7. Grab a bite before you head up to Hard Rock. And I think everyone's going to have a good time.
No, and, the CanesInsight's all about community. This is a community that existed before the website even existed. We pulled that community from Old Grassy, which had been around since 96, brought it to CanesInsight 2011. So 12 years later, still going strong. These are people that you talk to more than some of your family members. It might be someone that told you to die in a fire, over some argument over wide receivers. And then now you're meeting that person, in the flesh. So love that community vibe that we'll be bringing to Titanic. And man, excited to do it.
So let's get straight into some of these questions. I answered a few of them the best I could, but there are some here that I said, let's just wait for D-Money to get on. Right off the bat here, recruiting question from Yella265, Aiden Breland, asking about him.
Yeah, that one's quiet. I heard more last time I met with UM about and Patterson. But I asked him, like, is Breland out? And they said, no, Breland's not out. This is a very unusual era with the NIL, with everything else. you can't just have your old recruiting kind of clock, right? Where it's like slow trends to a school. Because the way it works now is it could be a trend, boom, money offer goes up. Now you're liking that school, offer gets matched. Now you're back to the school you wanted to go to. And then maybe at the end of the day, the bags are all equal and you pick where you want to go. But it's a very different process. Look, people always talk about Steve Wilfong crystal balls, right? And how accurate those are. I mean, how many times he been wrong this cycle? Dylan Stewart, Ohio State, South Carolina paid up. Now they got Dylan Stewart. He's not even from South Carolina. He's from DC. So if you were to say, okay, old recruiting rules are the South Carolina Gamecocks going to beat Ohio State, who has produced two of the best pass rushers in the country, in the nation, in the world, the Bosa brothers, plus another number one overall pick? Is a kid from DC going to pick South Carolina over them? No. But it's a new era. So that's a long answer to say we're still in it for Breland. If he were to pick tomorrow, am I getting intel that Miami's the pick? No. I think Stone and Franklin are more likely right now as far as the true battles. But I asked directly earlier this week, and the answer was, yeah, we're still in the game there.
The next question kind of, at the same position. In all honesty, do we feel like we will land one of the two, Stone or Franklin?
Miami does think that. Now, I'm not Miss Cleo. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I'm not in these kids' heads. They could be telling different people different things. Usually they are, especially, again, remember the era we're in. But if you asked, at least last I spoke, which was earlier this week, right before I put out the bank, when I spoke to my sources and kind of rounded up after coming back from the trip, yes, they expect to get one or both. Will that happen? We'll see. I can tell you they put in a lot of time. They're investing a lot in NIL. And, they've done everything they can. And we'll see how it shakes out. With Stone, his mom wants him at Miami. I got some pushback because I said, that there was some fear around that camp as to what would happen with the Oklahoma fan base if Stone picked another school. And they said, how are you slandering Oklahoma fans as racist? Oklahoma's band was making up racist chants. Go look up when the defensive tackle, I'm trying to find his name, the previous defensive tackle, he committed to Oregon at the top national guy. And the guy got lit up in social media to the point where David Stone himself made a comment. So that is part of this equation. Don't get it twisted. This is the truth of the matter. Again, look into it and you'll see that's a real concern and a real thing. The backlash of an Oklahoma kid and an Oklahoma family if he picks somewhere else. That's pressure going that way. The mom is pressure going towards Miami. Teammate going to Oklahoma. That's pressure going to Oklahoma. Kids are getting turned in a lot of directions. Miami's pressing and Miami's making them a huge priority.
Canes fans, like and subscribe. You can find us on all platforms for podcasts as well as we just dropped yesterday. Big review, about an hour-long podcast about everything going on in camp, and as well as a lot of these recruiting updates that D is giving now as well. D, we have a couple questions here. One on Zaquan Patterson and LaWayne McCoy. Those are two questions we're getting a lot here.
Yeah, Zaquan, again, kind of what we just talked about. FSU they want to make a splash. Bad classes in a row. They got some momentum now because they had a good season. So now they want to make a splash in South Florida. They thought they had Trader. FSU thought they had Trader. Miami got him. Now they're going to say, okay, we're going to get our win back on Patterson. And they're trying to pay up to do that. Miami knows that they're trying to pay up to do that. And let's see what happens. But, the mom, that's another where the mom wants him in Miami. I think Patterson, either way, wherever he commits, that's going to be an ongoing deal. He does not want to commit early. He's being pressured to commit early. FSU on that and saying, let's get momentum. So let's pay up to get Patterson now, get momentum, maybe get a foothold in South Florida. If we win a little bit, maybe we flip some of those kids down there. That's FSU's mentality, why they're so invested in Patterson, on top of the fact he's a top 100 player. But, it's a battle. Miami's in it. Mom is on the side. That has not always favored Miami. Sometimes it's gone against Miami when the mom wants him somewhere else. But mom wants him here. People around him want him here. Trader, Bain, Besaint, I I get similar vibes to those recruitments, even though this one might end up being a little bit more up and down because I don't expect it to be done when he commits.
We had a question about the tight end injuries. Obviously, Cam McCormick got the start in the scrimmage the other day. Riley Williams and Elijah Arroyo were not out there. Is this anything to be concerned about, or is this a caution sort of thing?
Yeah, no, it's minor injuries.
Yeah,
Nothing.
that's what I said. Just making sure there. So, and another question that I said that I wanted to get you to follow up with Chase Smith. Latest with him because
Yeah, he got an interception yesterday off a tip
okay.
ball. Talking to people. So
I didn't. Was he at the script? Was he playing in the scrimmage? Because maybe I missed him completely. But was he out there at the scrimmage?
I think he's limited, but getting closer to full go. So like a 7-on-7 kind of environment, you'll see him out there running around. Now cutting and colliding, the kind of things where your body's going into someone else and your legs, driving through somebody and maybe it's not ready yet and you get hurt. I don't think he's at that full contact stage, but running around 7-on-7 type stuff, he's doing that in pads. So, he's getting close. But again, interception yesterday for Chase Smith. I'm seeing some. I'll answer real quick just because they're on my screen, Pete. Then you look for some other ones. Julian Sutton, is the Michael Redding breakout finally going to happen? He's made some plays in camp. He's number 13 now, I believe, and he's made some plays. He's a worker. So workers, you can never count, especially guys that are fast like him, big like him, can make acrobatic catches like him. His weakness, the fluidity, the in and out of breaks, just kind of a graceful runner. But workers tend to rise as time goes on. KJ Osborne didn't break out until really late in his career, truly break out, like an NFL type breakout. So who knows with Michael Redding, but
they trust him. They trust him. That I answered the same question. I said, I think he's a guy the staff trusts. He got a ton of reps in the scrimmage and tough player, can block as well. So I think solid all around player. You're same thing with, there was a question about Shamar Kirk. He's someone they brought in who's really pushing the guys in front of him, like a Jacoby George and even a Tyler Harrell, I believe, right? Where, yeah, they're going to see snaps and they're going to play this year. But at the end of the day, you're building quality competition at these spots that have been much maligned for Miami the last few years.
Yeah, Shamar Kirk, I think, is probably a year away. But, look, I say that Colby Young got in kind of late like Kirk did, and Colby Young didn't look very good in camp. He looked slow. I talked to some people and said he might be a tight end, because he wasn't doing anything in camp. He looked kind of slow and sluggish. Got in shape, got acclimated to that speed, and he came here late. And by the middle of the season, he was the number one receiver. By coming to this year, he's way faster than he was in camp. So we'll see with Kirk. It's early in his process, but I don't think he's someone that's on the cusp right now. But to your point, Pete, he pushed a Jacoby George who's having a phenomenal camp. He looks like a whole new player. He's wearing number 3. Super consistent hands, great ball skills, can run after the catch. Just being more consistent on the field and better off the field as well. So like what you're seeing with George. One question I got to answer from my man, Steven Aveo. Did I see, D-Money, you see any killer whales in the San Juan Islands? Yes, we did. Saw some killer whales and a puffin. A couple of puffins as well. So, yeah, it was good. It was a prelude, hopefully, to what Miami's doing on the defensive tackle recruiting, this week and the next week. Whale watching out there.
Brad Tejeda chiming in here. Got to see Brad at the scrimmage the other day. He brought his kids out there, had them up at 2:30 in the morning, and made the drive down, showing the support for the boys. As always, Brad was on the live last week for the recruiting trail, and will obviously be a part of the coverage during the season moving forward. I have a question here from Carlos Cruz asking you, D-Money, if we will beat A&M. I'll let you answer the question in a second, D, but I actually was having I know you love these little anecdotes, but I was having a conversation with an NFL scout this week who I actually asked him, knowing what and this is a guy who is very familiar with Miami, doesn't know A&M as well as Miami, but I said, do you think Miami beats A&M this year? And he said, I do think they beat them. Not only the vibes in the building and the cohesiveness in terms of what's going on in the building, the coaching staff, right? Because I think there was a lot of stuff off last year. But that talent level has been raised a big, big way, especially we keep saying the offensive line, but that's what these scouts are seeing, man. They're seeing the trenches have been upgraded in a big, big way. And I think that's where A&M had a huge advantage last year.
Yeah, veteran quarterback also for Miami. A&M is bringing in someone new, so that's a change. And really, the offensive line's veteran too. It's new guys to us, but Lee's a veteran, Cohen's a veteran, Rivers a veteran. Ines Cooper played a lot last year, so there's veterans on Miami's offensive line. Even though, like, as a unit of 5, it's pretty new. One thing I wanted to say about talent, obviously, Miami's not where they're going to be or want to be, talent-wise, up and down. But if you really look at it, Pete, and I know we love to talk about NFL stuff because you got those scouting connections. We're the first ones talking about John Ford getting drafted, DJ Ivey getting NFL attention, just because it's a different way of looking at it with the NFL side. Tell me if I'm wrong on any of these. Jim Nagy, who runs the Senior Bowl, okay, you talk to him, you know the guy personally. He's a front office guy who got a job with the Senior Bowl to pick the best players in the country that are seniors to get drafted. He talks to front offices every day. That is his life. He said Miami has 4 NFL linemen. Let's knock off Zion because of the injury uncertainty. So 3, which would be Rivers, Lee, and Cohen. Okay, so 3 NFL offensive linemen. TVD is going to get drafted unless he has just a horrible year. TVD, with his size, with his arm, if he has a solid to good year, he will get drafted somewhere, right? That's 4. Leonard Taylor's a projected first-round pick. Okay? Nesta got drafted last year. Leonard Taylor's getting drafted unless he kills somebody. So that's 5. Akeem Mesidor would have gotten drafted last year, correct?
Yes. I think there's going to be some questions about where he ends up because what positions he's going to play at the next level and how is he going to test. But for sure, a draft pick, a guy who will play in the NFL.
That's 6. Cam Kitchens, again, athletic questions. Is he going to get drafted first round like he was an All-American? Maybe not, but he's going to get picked. Am I right on that based on your conversation?
Yeah, probably right now a 3rd, 4th round pick if the draft was today, if it decided to come out.
So that's 9. Sorry, that's 7. Then James Williams, with his size and ability, it's like Ivy last year. Someone's going to pick him, which would take it to 8, especially if it's a good year. So that's going to take it to 8.
Devontae Brown has a very good chance.
And I'm not even getting into that one. And there's others too that could potentially elevate to that level. But let's just, just with those guys, cut there. And I think Devontae Brown definitely could be one of those guys. But let's not even get to that. 8 players drafted. Here are the teams that had 8 players drafted last year. Alabama, Georgia, Michigan, TCU. Okay? So I'm not saying Miami's going to the playoff or anything like that. I'm saying there's talent on this team. The breakdown I just gave was not with orange and green glasses on. I mean, Pete, you talk to scouts 45-minute conversations often, talking about Miami's players. Is anything I'm saying out of touch with what they're saying to you?
No, and I think there has to be a clarification here, right? Because the Canes fans look at it and they say, well, the way that a lot of them looked at it with a DJ Ivey, and they say, well, look what he's doing now in the practices. This is not to say that all of them are going to be perfect players at Miami, that they're going to go out there and be all-American players. Let's see how the season unfolds, and let's see what their roles are within this team. But the talent level of this team has been raised in a big, big way. And going down the line the way you just did is not including a guy like Francis Mauigoa, whose scouts are coming in and saying that's the best looking player on the team. They're not scouting him yet because he's not draft eligible. But when you see the freaks list where I'm hearing Mario Cristobal's already telling scouts that that kid is going to be better than Penei Sewell, right? And we understand how special we expect this freshman class to be at Miami. You're not including those guys, right? And I don't want to pump the brakes here because this is Canes fans will comment saying, oh, you guys are just getting us excited again. A lot needs to happen on the field. We understand that. But the talent level has been raised in a big way. When you bring Mario Cristobal in here, we understand there are questions about game day coaching, X's and O's, yada, yada, yada. But he's going to build a roster out at Miami. And that is what we're seeing here through the transfer portal and obviously in the recruiting class right away. We'll see what happens this year recruiting-wise, but it's been raised in a big way.
Yeah, no doubt. I got some more questions. Trevon Thaddeus, you think JoJo sticks with his commitment? If Miami plays well, yeah, I think so. He wants to be here. His people around him want to be here. Miami wants him here. Miami likes him. Miami likes him more now than when he committed because they've seen him when they first saw him, they thought he was good. Seen him at the camp right before he committed, I should say. Now he's like, they're like, they got to keep this guy because he was outstanding. So they'll make sure they keep him. Miami just needs to play good on offense. Juan Manuel Ventura wants to know, Jadis Richard as safety next to number 5 with James Williams, safety linebacker. Your thoughts? I think you're onto something. I mentioned it on yesterday's podcast, which if you haven't heard it, check it out on YouTube. Me and Pete spent like an hour going up and down the roster based on what I've seen and heard in spring. Jadis Richard from Vanderbilt. He played corner last year for Vanderbilt, also played some nickel, was a safety in high school. With Miami, they see him as a guy that can do all of that. Maybe in a perfect world, he's an outside corner only. But because Miami has so many needs and they really don't have a third safety that's reliable, I could see Richard being the third safety and also potentially playing outside and playing nickel. They'll move him around. He'll be a Swiss Army knife. Not because he can't do any of the roles. It's because he can do those roles and they need him. So what else we got here? So yeah, Brad. Good to Brad. Brad is like 32 or something, man. I thought I was like 18. He was like calling me up and giving him advice like he's like a little kid out of high school and he's telling me he's got kids. He's younger than me. Brad, Brad's got those good genetics, man. He looks young. What else we got here? Ian Coleman, any smoke on the central QB or Bailey from Chaminade? Central QB, I don't see that one necessarily. Chaminade, we'll see. That's a real thing. I think Miami's going to be evaluating quarterbacks all year. I'd be shocked if it's just Judd. I've been saying that all year. Whether it's high school or transfer, I don't expect Judd to be the guy, the only guy. Ocala Kane, does James Williams look like he has accepted his new position and ready to make noise in the box? Good attitude, ready to rock. So those are a few questions. What you got, Pete?
Well, this Assad Hussein has asked the question a couple of times, so I want to get to it. He's asking about, with the litany of injuries last season, the strength and conditioning staff was under the spotlight. Have you heard of any adjustments that were made, or is it just football as a physical, violent sport?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's one of my big concerns. On wood, right now, I've heard no major injuries as of Tuesday. Hope it stays that way, but so far so good. Miami could use some good injury luck. And have they done something different? If they haven't, they should. Because you got to evaluate every aspect of your program after a 5-7 season. And Miami had too many injuries last year. Some of that, you can't control, but man, it was a lot. And Miami had very, very physical practices.
Well, have you seen any differences with the practices, or have you heard any differences with the practices?
No, not really. They're still hitting,
Well, my whole thing, I think I said this on a podcast last year too. I think, yes, there were a lot of injuries, but those tend to get magnified when you don't have the depth as well. So maybe that, hopefully, with the depth being improved across the roster, but there are still certain spots that you do worry about if certain guys go down.
Yeah, we don't want Matt Lee to go down. We don't want anybody to go down. But obviously TVD, Matt Lee, Leonard Taylor, Cam Kitchens, Francisco Malagoa, the linebacker. Those are a few that just jump out that an injury to them would hurt even more than injuries elsewhere just because of the position, the nature of it, the leadership, the guys behind him, all that.
LaWayne McCoy, questions coming in.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything new on McCoy. The message I've been getting on McCoy always has been, look, if he wants to flip, we'll take him. if he wants to call up Miami and say, hey, I want to flip to Miami, he'd be at Miami. They wouldn't say no. But if he's not ready to flip, they're not going to be, pushing, messing around. Or if he's ready to decommit, but he wants to go see other schools, Miami will take it as it comes, and we'll see how that plays out. But I think the focus with McCoy, or at least a story with McCoy, he's got a spot if he wants it. It's really up to him.
Shout out to the almost 200 people watching us live right now. Appreciate everyone's support. Hit that like and subscribe button. Again, CanesInsight.com, completely free website. You can sign up, check out the message boards. That's where everything is always happening. The discussion's always happening there. A lot of updates always going up there on the website right after practice as well. It's the place you want to be.
No doubt. And yeah, practice updates. You're not going to get any more exclusive scoop than right here on this podcast, the stream, the site, and recruiting were the fastest and the most accurate. William Bacon wants to know what happened in our recruitment with T.A. Cunningham. He moved across the country to play at Central, potential flip. I think Miami's still evaluating him. He hasn't played a lot of football, all the moving around. If he has an awesome year at Central and the Central coaches give good intel, I could see him being in the class. But that's, things need to happen for that to take place. I can tell you Miami has a lot of respect for Central's coaches, as do I. I think they're super underrated. Everybody always talks about the talent. They don't talk enough about the coaching at Central with all the success they've had. But anyways, Miami's got a lot of respect for those coaches. Vincent Shavers from Central. He's someone, if you look at Vincent Shavers' film last year, pace, it was not what you would expect from a Miami linebacker, at least in my opinion. But the Central coaches basically said, look, man, this guy's unreal. You need him. And then they saw him in practice, and he was playing at a whole nother level. So they listened to what Central coaches tell them. Stanquan Clark last year is another one where they might have looked at the junior film at Killian and said, this guy doesn't look that good. He went to Central, turned it on. They went after him hard, but they were a little late. With Cunningham, he has not, again, played a lot of football, not shown a lot aside from his physical tools. If he has a good year at Central and Central says this guy's a dude, Miami will be all over him and try to flip him, I promise. But I haven't heard anything new there.
D, we have a question about Daryl Jackson's name is coming up here, which he's a guy who I got a call from a scout yesterday who said he dominated an FSU practice the other day, and that there's a chance without even playing this year, he could still come out for the NFL draft this year. So not to beat a dead horse there, but man, he would have been a big player for this team this year.
Yeah, it hurts. And I loved him. He was a favorite player last year. He's good. They got politicians writing letters trying to change the laws. It's the first time I ever rooted for the NCAA, but NCAA didn't got that much clout. So in the area where they control the domain, they're going to assert their dominance, right? They're going to be like, all right, well, this is something you can't really mess with us on. So we're going to show you that we still have some clout and some power. So that's what Daryl Jackson's finding. And look, from Miami's standpoint, you don't want to face. I agree with, and you hate to. I'm pretty pro player, so you don't want the kid's future to get screwed up. But to me, like you said, I think if he just trains, what's he going to school for? You know what I mean? Drop out, train.
Well, the scouts are seeing him in practice, which is that's really all they need to see, especially with a good FSU team this year. So they're seeing him there. That's really all they need to see from him.
He started last year for us. I mean, he was basically like Rousseau. He's a second-year player for us, and he had a good season. So he's got film, I mean, people get drafted. The left tackle for Philadelphia got drafted off of rugby highlights, and now he's a Pro Bowler. So, I mean, I think he'll be fine. If I'm him, I mean, I understand why FSU's trying to get him reinstated and getting the politicians all fired up. But if I'm him, I'm saying, listen, I'm going to work out, get my body right, and go pro. But, enough talk about FSU. Actually, one point about that I'll translate to Miami, which is someone asked a question about Artavius Jones. Look, he's telling us the right Pablo Bravo, or sorry, who asked the question on Artavius?
352 MLW.
Yeah, MLW, long time listener. Appreciate you. So with Artavius Jones, I'm a big believer in geography when it comes to recruiting. I just don't like recruiting small town kids at Miami. Jerome Brown, one of the greatest of all time, that'd be an exception to that rule. But in 2023, now that the SEC is so dominant, I don't like getting those guys because they burn you at the end. That's me. That's my personal opinion. I do not think we should waste time with country guys unless they just dying to go to the U. You know, Davis Jones is a player. He's my favorite player in the class. Daryl Jackson, my favorite player on last year's team. Problem is, the country kids tend to stay in the country. You might get them for a second, but then they go back. So geography's not on our side with Jones. He's telling us the right things. We want it bad. But, you know, I think the Daryl Jackson story is telling as far as what might happen with Artavius Jones, because geography usually wins out. I think we should be living, in my opinion, in the big cities, you know, 6-figure population places. You know, so we get, look at my man Armando here.
Yeah, I had to put our boy. I kind of did it by accident because I'm just getting.
Oh, you gotta
let's
start doing that now. You gotta learn how to use. You gotta learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Start putting these up now. Okay, start putting these up. Get savvy here. We only doing this for like 4 months now. You might as well figure it out. All right, my man Mondo. Love the enthusiasm. This guy energizes me at work. Yeah. Do I see Fletcher or AJ Allen eventually getting the most touches at running back? And when I grow up, I want to take exotic vacations constantly like D-Money. What exotic vacations I've been on? I guess I did the podcast from Dominican Republic a few months ago, I guess. But yeah, man, I like the USA.
And you were whale watching.
Yeah, I like the USA. I'm not a big Europe guy. You know, Europe. I'm not big on the old world. You know, I like the Stars and Stripes and then the Caribbean too. Anyways. So you see Fletcher and AJ Allen eventually getting the most touches at running back. Yeah, for sure. Parrish, I think, will play. It reminds me of Ole Miss. They had the two backs. I forgot their names, but they were both pretty good. I think both of them went to the NFL, Snoop Connor and someone else.
Yeah.
And Parrish was the third guy in that mix. And they ended up, I think they were like a top 10 team in the country in rushing with Lane Kiffin. I could see it like that, where Fletcher and Allen are the two main ones, and then Parrish is like the just reliable third guy. And the numbers all kind of end up the same. Maybe one guy has more big runs, one guy has more red zone runs. I mean, probably Fletcher. And then someone like Parrish is just kind of like steady Eddie. I see that being how it shakes out. I don't think Parrish is going to get left behind at all. But yeah, AJ Allen, big time Fletcher. And, you know, unfortunately, injuries happen too. Plus Chaney, we talked about him on the podcast that we recorded. You guys all got to check out. Chaney had a really, really good scrimmage or a good practice with a lot of full contact on, I want to say Tuesday night.
I'm going to throw one up here for you, D.
All right. So my man, Brad Weber wants to know, D-Money, is Lionel Messi the hottest thing to hit South Beach since Razor Ramon? You know, I was a kid when Razor Ramon was doing those skits on, in Little Havana playing dominoes and yelling at the chicas. You know, we got two honorary Cubans that got the pass, which is Scott Hall and Al Pacino, you know, from Scarface. I'd say those two get the automatic Cuban pass. Also, Cody Rhodes, he's half Cuban, the current heavyweight contender from the WWE. Anyways, Lionel Messi, look, I'm not a big soccer guy personally, but, you know, kicking ass. My kids love watching on TV. He's doing his thing. But don't sleep on the Marlins. You know, I'm bringing back to baseball. Marlins need some attention too. You know, they don't got the flashy pink uniforms, but they're an underdog squad and they're fighting out there. So go out to Lone Depot. Nice American sport.
League's Cup is my passion. They're in the finals, baby, this Saturday evening against Nashville.
Okay.
Let's see what else we got here. No Smoke talking about Colby Young, who you were just mentioning a little while ago.
Yeah, what he's hearing is right. Colby Young in the red zone, that's where he lives because he's got the size, and some guys got the size, but they're not high pointers. You know, like a Frank Ladson is a good example. Frank Ladson's got great size, and he's a good kid too, great worker. The problem with Frank Ladson is he's really a track guy, not a basketball guy. So he's fast in a straight line, doesn't have the cuts because he's, again, a track guy and a tall guy. But then the height doesn't play into his favor because he doesn't high point it over guys. D. Wiggins would fall into that category as well. Tommy Streeter maybe a little bit too, although Tommy Streeter did get that later in his career. So with Young, he's big, but he also plays big. He plucks the ball out of the air. He high points it. He's got great body control. He knows how to use his strength and push guys off. So Colby Young's having an awesome camp spring. He looks different physically. He's faster. He's a worker. So I'm a big believer that wide receiver is all about work and craft. The hard workers are the guys that usually make it. Justin Jefferson was a 2-star. Cooper Kupp. You can go on and on. Devontae Adams. I don't really want the freaks that are. You can be a diva, but you better work like a walk-on. Okay, the guys that work like divas, they don't make it. Now you could be an Antonio Brown and be a total nutcase or a TO, but you work like a nutcase too. You'll make plays. But guys that don't work don't make it. Jeff Thomas, all the talent in the world. Where's Jeff Thomas? I see Mike Harley catching touchdowns in preseason. I see Mike Harley's name all over the NFL or the record books. Jeff Thomas, no. So, and not just because of his personality. I mean, he's had chances since then. So I like work ethic. Colby Young's got that, and he's got size, which we need. Red zone, he's definitely the man.
Fresh 3542 talking about the cornerbacks in this class.
Yeah, we need
top guys.
I mean, look, so 3542, we need top cornerbacks in this class. I agree with you. This has been the biggest weakness recruiting wise, in my opinion. And it's a concern on the team as well. I'm not seeing the DB quality where it needs to be for Miami. And DB is an arms race. You need Patrick Surtain. You need Tyson Campbell. You need these guys. Damari Brown's a good one. But you can't be living off transfers at corner. You need some studs. And I'm not seeing that enough. And that is, if you ask me, my biggest concern, short-term, long-term, defensive back, including safety because of the lack of depth, long-term, defensive back in general, yeah, but especially corner. I'm not seeing the recruiting at that position.
You need to stack those classes on top of each other.
And while you're looking for the next question, I want to add the coaching aspect too needs to step up because we had 2 NFL corners last year and we were hundreds or something in pass efficiency with a top 10 sack operation up front. So that can't happen. As good as Ivy and Tyreek was a second-round pick, starter, NFL.
D, will couple more minutes here before we wrap up. So if anyone else wants to get their questions in, get them in now. We have 220 plus watching live right now. I appreciate all of you guys. Like, subscribe, comment as always. We've had a couple questions here about Brandon Jacobs.
Yeah, I'm going to ask about him. I don't know that. Brandon Jacobs, I believe, is from Orlando area. I haven't asked about why we haven't been recruiting him harder at safety. I will find out. Now, remember, Zaquan, they like Isaiah Thomas, who's been on the podcast. You can check out his interview with Pete. You had an awesome interview with him that's in our feed and on the audio podcast, which you can also subscribe to, listen in the car. So they like Isaiah Thomas. Dylan Day is like a nickel safety, but he's also in that mix. They love him. And then, saving a spot for Zaquan Patterson. So I think they like that safety board. But yeah, for the merrier, we don't have anybody. I think that would be someone that makes sense, but find out.
Here's a comment that I want to show because this is something that you talked about on the podcast yesterday when Williams Bacon here says we need Van Dyke back. And I'm assuming he's talking about the Van Dyke of a couple years ago, right? And it seems like he's doing really nice things in this offense right now.
Yeah, well, actually, I think he might be talking about the DeMarcus Van Dyke as far as the recruiting side. I don't know.
Yeah, probably. That's exactly what he's saying.
But look, man, I DVD wasn't landing him either, if we're being honest.
Yeah.
I mean, who we land in that era? We had Cormani committed. He didn't come here, so
right.
I don't know. I cannot explain to you what the problem is at corner. I just cannot understand it at this school. We don't even get the sleepers. So I don't know why that's been such a tough position. And the real weird thing, if you're really thinking about it, is go look at the all-time Canes team and look at every position. And you tell me what the weakest position is. It might be defensive back or cornerback. Safety, world. But who's the all-time corner duo at UM? Buchanan, Rumpf, Ryan McNeil, Dwayne Starks. I mean, I don't know. You tell me in the comments, but
Antrell Roll ended up playing safety,
and it was a safety in the NFL, right? But these aren't Ed Reed, Sean, Ray Lewis's, Dan Morgan's, Vince Wilfork, Jerome Brown, the other positions, Ted Hendricks, whatever. So that's the tricky part.
Might be Sam Shields.
Oh, talking about pro, yeah.
No, not.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, it's just crazy what a career he ended up having. Maybe let me see if there's anything else here. Cam Franklin, we've gotten into that. Don Chaney, another comment here from 352 MLW asking about Don Chaney.
Does he look like the old him? I mean, physically, yeah. I mean, what's the old him, though? I mean, we haven't seen him play, really. I want to see him play. I keep using the Damian Barry comparison. I just get the feeling he's going to have one of those times where people forget about him, an injury happens, an opportunity comes, and he's the man, and, he ends up making something happen and really elevating his career. So, I hope. But physically, yeah, he looks good. He didn't look slowed down at all.
Well, we'll have one more scrimmage here before camp wraps. No, D.
Yeah, at least one. They usually have 3, so they had one. They should have probably 3. The third one's always kind of weird. It's not, but they should have at least 2 full scale. Getting your depth chart right, scrimmages. And then the third, I think, is more like a run through. There's some non-contact parts of it. We'll see. But I think 3.
Cool. Well, D, we appreciate the time as always. Appreciate everyone who came on this live tonight. Had really good turnout. And as always, we'll do this weekly, Thursday nights. Maybe something else during the season. Maybe do some preview stuff on Fridays as well. But thank you to everyone who joined. Like and subscribe to the channel. Sign up for CanesInSight, completely free. Always have the updates there. Check out the podcast that we dropped last night. And keep it locked to the website. We're in the middle of camp, so a bunch of stuff always happening. But CanesInSight will be on top of it as always.
And CanesInSight Shopify, CanesInsight.myshopify.com. The gear, you're getting gear for the season. Load up on that. Pete's got the link in the bio and everything else. But make sure, and also definitely sign up for the forums, man. You'll be addicted. It's so fast. There's so much information. Things happen so quick. You might ruin your marriage. Your family life might suffer from it, but you'll be on there all day. Work life, I promise you. So check it out. And again, appreciate everybody jumping on. We're going to keep rolling. Link right there to the Shopify in the comments. We're going to keep rolling. Content's not going to stop. It's only going to elevate, and you're not going to get this kind of exclusive camp insight. And I'll give you some firsthand accounts too. Now that I'm back, I'll be out there and letting you know what I see and what I'm hearing. So tune in. Go Canes.
Go Canes. See you guys later.